Hi everybody, happy Saturday. Today we are talking about the Brain Health Kitchen. I have author coming on here, Dr. Fenn, and we're going to be talking about how to prevent Alzheimer's through food. So I'll let you guys start coming on. Hello everybody. Happy Saturday. I am lacking in my ring light today. Just because I think I left it at another place. But I'll let you guys start coming on. We're talking about how to prevent Alzheimer's through food, and I have a special guest coming on, the Brain Health Kitchen author. This is Dr. Fenn. So let me see if I can see. Yes, I see her right now. See if I can get her on here. Exciting topic today. This is about brain health, which is so important. And oh, there we go. Hi,
Hi, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. So nice to meet you face to face.
It's amazing to meet you, Darnell. Thank you for having me
Of
on.
course, I know a lot about you, but but tell our viewers a little bit more about you. How did you come up with the Brain Health Kitchen? Tell me what's going on.
Oh, so I came up with the idea of starting a cooking school that teaches people how to eat to prevent Alzheimer's. Shortly after my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I'm an MD, a physician. I had retired to go to culinary school, and I was already teaching healthy cooking in my community and kind of, like still reading the medical literature about the link between nutrition and healthy aging, which was my interest. But when my mom was diagnosed, I took a really deep dive into what does the data actually say about using nutrition to fend off Alzheimer's? And if you already have Alzheimer's, like, can you slow it down?
Right.
So it was all culminating. I was already teaching cooking classes. I was, helping out my mom. And it came to me that it should be a cooking school because
Yeah.
it would be a really fun way to empower people to take charge of their brain health while eating really delicious food. And it's also a great way to show people how easy it is to cook this way and also how much fun it is. So
Yeah.
that's what the Brain Health Kitchen started as in 2015. Now it's a book, it's a community, it's a newsletter, it's many things, it's brain health retreats, but it all started as this idea of helping people age with healthier brains.
I love that. Dementia and cognitive decline are not inevitable, right? I keep telling people this all the time. Like, there are things that you can do right now that will affect your brain health in the future. So I always say, like, you're never too young. For those of you who are on here like, oh, I don't have to worry about that, I'm like in my 30s. What you're doing right now is what we need to concentrate on, because it all has an impact.
It's
Right.
absolutely true. Most of the data we have at looking at how you actually prevent Alzheimer's comes from looking at habits in midlife, but we're starting to see more data in young adults, those in their 20s and their 30s and early 40s. And that age group is actually really important. So I've started to talk about brain health across different lifespans.
Yeah.
Because, if you're a 25-year-old, you may not be worried about getting Alzheimer's or getting dementia, but you do want to have a high functioning brain. You want to do well in school. You want to kill it at work. You want to have a great memory, and all of these things come from the exact same,
Yeah.
healthy way of eating.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. So you used to be you were a retired doctor who opened up a kitchen on how do you cook in order to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. I find it fascinating because it always starts with food, right?
In my world, it does.
In my
I
world, it does too. As a gerontologist and health coach, I can tell you, like, there's so many different things that you can incorporate, and the way you eat and the timing you eat and what you're eating, that really kind of change your health trajectory, and not only keep you on the planet longer, but it improves that and increases that health span. Those number of healthy years where we're cognitively functioning and we're mobile and we're happy and we're active. Like, food is medicine.
Yeah, I love the concept of health span, but I also think in terms of brain span.
Yeah.
You know, you want your brain to be as active and as functioning as long as your lifespan. So you want your brain span to match your lifespan, especially in that last 10 or 20 years of life. This is what we're doing now. And any of the small habits that we fold into our lives now can really help keep your brain thriving in those ages.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, what is the mind diet? Because you talk about that in the book. What is the mind diet, and why is it important, and why is it controversial for some?
Well, the mind diet is a hybrid diet of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. And the DASH diet, as some people might know, was developed to reduce hypertension or high blood pressure. So these are the two most high performing diets for health, ever created. Mediterranean diet has, dozens and dozens of studies showing it reduces cardiovascular disease risk like heart attack and stroke, as does the DASH diet. So the idea of the mind diet came from Dr. Martha Claire Morris, who was a nutritional epidemiologist at Rush University. And she's the one that had the idea, what if you take the Mediterranean diet and you make it more brain specific? Because we already know what's good for the heart is good for the brain. Yep. So anyone out there listening who has been listening to their doctors or their health coaches about healthy habits for not getting cardiovascular disease, all of these is pertinent to our conversation around brain health. And Dr. Morris wanted to say, okay, we're going to take this heart healthy diet. We're going to make it more brain specific. We're going to do that by adding in and emphasizing certain food groups that we know are independently good for the brain, like berries, like leafy greens, like nuts, like fish and seafood. And there's a lot of overlap there, of course.
Let's go over this a little bit, because last night I texted Annie and I said, okay, I know you're going to be talking about certain foods. What should I have in my kitchen? And you gave me a list of foods, and I'm just gonna list them off. Just in a text message, this was the list: berries, fresh or frozen; leafy greens, boxed is fine. I have berries in the freezer, but leafy greens boxed is fine, because a lot of times when you have leafy greens, you'll see that they come in boxes. Organic is important, you guys. If you missed that show I did on eating organic, you don't really want to incorporate some really, nutrient dense leafy greens if they're sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. That's not great for your brain. But we did have leafy greens. We've got broccoli, cauliflower. I want to just pause for a second. Every single one of these was in my kitchen.
Yeah.
So there was no grocery store trip. So that just kind of, I really feel like, yes, it starts with food, but to be surrounded by the foods that you already know are great for your brain or great for your heart, because we know that those cross over, or great for like longevity. We know all of that stuff crosses over. Everything is connected. To have this stuff readily available and know what to shop for, I think is super important, because you don't want to go to the refrigerator and go like, oh, what am I going to eat? Well, there's this 6-month-old hash brown in the freezer. You want to make sure that you've got.
You want to make the brain healthy choice the easiest choice, the most convenient choice. And that means having it front and center in your fridge, in your pantry. And a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people in your audience, are already eating these foods. What the mind diet did was it showed us what the dose of these foods is. You mentioned that food is medicine. I also agree that food is medicine. Food is preventive medicine when it comes to the brain. And so what we have learned from the mind diet is, how many servings of berries should you have in a week? How many servings of leafy greens? How often should you eat beans? How often should you eat fish?
How many servings of berries should you have in a week? Because berries are really great. They're antioxidant, they're anti-cancer, they're all of those things. I always tell my clients, like, let's not eat them on an empty stomach, and let's make sure you've got some stuff in there to mitigate the way the sugar hits your bloodstream. Because for some people, you don't want to wake up and have that berry smoothie when you've been fasting.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like gets stored as fat, because your body is like,
berries and yogurt go really well together. Berries and granola go really well together. So the mind diet, what basically defined brain healthy eating into 10 different food groups. And
Okay.
so this study came out in 2015. And just so your audience knows, if they're not familiar, when they followed roughly 1,000 people in the greater Chicago area and asked them to follow the MIND diet, and they gave them a score as to how closely they're following the criteria for this diet. And then they did cognitive testing very thoroughly over the course of 5 years. After 5 years, the people that followed the diet most closely, do you know how much Alzheimer's risk reduction they were able to gain?
No, I.
53%.
Wow.
So they slashed their Alzheimer's risk in half. Now, these are cognitively healthy people in the study. You couldn't get into the study if you had any kind of dementia or mild cognitive impairment, right? They were
Right.
screened for that. So
Right.
just by following these 10 brain healthy food groups, and we'll go over the doses and the servings, slash their risk by 53%. Now, the people that followed the dietary pattern about half the time, because it is hard to change your diet. And a lot of these people were following a standard American diet, which we all know is not great for the brain. But even the people that made small changes, they had a 37% risk reduction in Alzheimer's at the end of 5 years. That's why the MIND diet is so important. And it's not really controversial, except for the fact that this was in 2015 when this data came out. It's still the best data we have about how to eat for your brain. But the controversy comes from, there was a randomized controlled trial that came out in 2021. And this pitted the MIND diet against another healthy diet, and both were weight loss reduction diets. And they didn't see a huge difference between the eaters in these. And that study is super complicated. We can certainly get into it, but that's one reason why you may have read that, oh, the MIND diet's not as good as we thought.
I see. Well, that's because everything is connected, right?
Yeah.
So if you're, and I coach this all the time. I get a lot of people, for those of you who don't know me, who are maybe here for Dr. Fenn, who, it's your first time on my channel. My name is Darnell Cox. I am 56 years old. I'm a gerontologist. That is somebody who studies the aging process. I'm also a healthy aging coach, amongst a lot of other things. I'm a certified holistic nutrition and health coach. Blah blah blah.
Amazing.
Whatever.
I love your work. I absolutely love your work.
Thank you so much. But all of that said, I oftentimes talk about how everything is connected. So for those of you guys who follow me for skincare, which I'm probably going to be like microneedling something tomorrow, but for those of you who follow me for skincare starts with the stuff that you put into your body, right? You can't drink a bunch of alcohol and eat a bunch of carbs and do a skincare and think you're going to have the best skin ever. So every single thing is connected. Just like when you're on a diet that's great for cardiovascular health, it's also going to improve your brain health. You add in those extra things, right? Like walnuts and different things that you talk about in your book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a visual in terms of what we're talking about. So when I started writing my book, The Brain Health Kitchen, I thought I was writing a cookbook, and it is a cookbook. It has 100 recipes, but there's a lot of science too. I thought I was writing a cookbook for people how to eat from the MIND diet.
Yeah.
But of course, the MIND diet was in 2015, and there are hundreds and hundreds of studies about how to eat to prevent dementia. And there are other dietary patterns. MIND diet's not the only one that shows you can have, valid brain gains by eating a certain way. So I basically put all of the recommendations into one food pyramid. It's largely based on the MIND diet, but I changed some things based on recent data. So for example, the MIND diet and the Mediterranean diet very famously include a glass of red wine every day, because we used to think that moderate drinking was good for the brain, that actually protected us from both heart disease and Alzheimer's disease. We thought this up until 2022.
Yes, that's when I stopped drinking. I literally
yes.
I just did a
Good for you.
live show on this. There is so much evidence now about how there is no amount of alcohol that is really great for the brain. And all of those past studies where they used to think a glass or two of wine, it's great for your brain, it has a resveratrol. Those are so skewed based on socioeconomic status, because those people that were drinking the glass or two of red wine a night also we're able to afford a glass or two of red wine at
It's
night.
very, very complicated. The only way to know if a certain food or a drink affects your brain as you age is to follow brain volume over time. A lot of the newer studies now include MRI data. With MRI data, they're looking at, okay, if you drink 3 glasses of red wine a week, does that make your brain shrink compared to someone who doesn't drink alcohol at all? And that's the kind of data we're getting now.
Yeah.
So my book came out in January 2023. It was literally going to print at the end of the summer in 2022 when the UK Biobank study came out. And I had included red wine based on all the other data that came before it. And then when I saw this study, which was 36,000 participants having their brain scanned over many years, and looking at what amount of alcohol shrinks the brain over time.
Yeah.
I called up my editor. I said, I have to make some changes. I'm completely changing the pyramid. So there is no alcohol on this pyramid, unlike the Mind Diet pyramid, still includes it as a 10th brain healthy food group. But I took it away and I put it in my 6 foods to limit or avoid. That's where I put the alcohol, with the pastries and sweets and the fast food and the cheese and the butter and the other things that, you know, we can have on occasion, but should limit it in a brain healthy diet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that study that came out, I mean, that was so shocking and yet not shocking. And then I like to look at like the marketing behind alcohol and why is it that we were convinced that it
Most
was
of the studies were backed by, you know, red wine companies from Spain and other parts of Europe.
Yeah, it's funny.
The most famous Mediterranean diet study was backed by, you know, wine companies.
Really? I know
Yeah,
that the Alzheimer's Association, there are several different alcohol companies that give money to the Alzheimer's Association for research and for funding. And if that's the case, how, you know, how can you, you know, literally be completely objective if your research is dependent on funding from alcohol companies?
It's true. And in all honesty, you know, it's just a very difficult thing to study. Nutrition is very difficult to study when you're looking at long-term outcomes like, what do I do now, you know, in my 50s? And is that going to like increase my risk of getting dementia later? It's very, very hard. But now that a lot of the studies are incorporating brain imaging data, we're getting like real concrete information. Like, you know, if you eat red meat, how much red meat, you know, lowers your brain volume? What if it's processed versus, you know, another type of meat? We're getting all this really good information. So instead of, the good news is instead of alcohol, which we, you know, if you drink, you know, minimally, if at all. I added coffee and tea as the 10th brain healthy food group, along with water. Yeah, and I'm drinking my favorite mushroom matcha right now because we have tons.
Wait,
I know.
I got it all going on.
We could totally hang out, Darnell. We could hang out together.
So a lot of my followers know I start my day with 32 ounces of green tea. That's how I start my day. And I do.
So talk about a brain healthy habit. We have, unlike alcohol, we have tons of data to say that drinking green tea or drinking coffee is so rich in polyphenols. It floods your brain with polyphenols. And it's the type of polyphenols that block oxidative stress in the brain. So we have basic science data. We also have population data to show that people that drink coffee or tea regularly, they probably have 40% less dementia across the board.
Yay! Okay,
now that's a healthy drink. That's a healthy drink. And that's why I made it to my pyramid.
I love it. I always tell my clients, when you can do things first thing in the morning, you know, midday, or there's no way I'm going to get 32 ounces of green tea in me midday. But when you start these healthy habits, like first thing in the morning, make sure that you're having, like, first of all, the hydration, which is also great for your brain.
Yes.
Right? There's
Absolutely.
so many elderly people that, because we lack that, I say my mouth started watering. Sorry, I'm around all of these vegetables. So I'm like, lunch is coming up. So when I basically was like just saying, when you are around like these kinds of foods and you start your day off with like in the right way, it kind of sets yourself up. And there are so many elderly people, not so many. It's known that the connection between thirst is limited and diminished as we age. So we forget sometimes we don't have the signals. I say we, but we're all going to be in this category. Hopefully
We all are.
we're all going to be wrinkly old ladies, right? With a little left. That's the goal. That's like the goal of healthy aging. How can we get to be wrinkly old ladies with our brains working to the best of their abilities, our joints working, we're mobile, we're active, we're happy, all of that stuff? That's healthy aging. But there's so many so many elderly people that get hospitalized due to dehydration because they're lacking that, not lacking, it just diminishes with age. Our body's telling us that we're thirsty. So to start off in such a way that you're having 32 ounces with a green tea that is great for your brain. And then what I do, just for those of you who are new to my channel, then what I do, I'm fasting, so I just have green tea on an empty stomach. I work out, and then I break my fast with a mushroom coffee, because mushrooms are great for the
Mushrooms
brain
are great
as well.
for the brain. Yeah. I actually called out mushrooms as an honorary vegetable on my food pyramid.
Yes.
So like so this is basically a glimpse of what brain healthy eating looks like in the course of a week. So one of the things that people get really discouraged about is making mistakes on a daily basis. Like, oh, I didn't eat any vegetables today, or oh, I didn't eat berries today. Or like, I just I was really busy and I just didn't really have that great of a lunch, that sort of a thing. But what you eat on a daily basis is not as important as what you eat on a weekly basis. The Mind diet criteria are based on a weekly basis. So this is as well. So if you look at this bottom rung, this is what we should be eating most of.
Wait, Annie, what page are you on?
This is on page 33 of my book.
Got it.
The bottom rung, that red rung, this is vegetables. And if you go up the first 5, these are all plant-based food groups. Okay. Yes. So the brain healthy diet is mostly a plant-based food group. Yes. It's not plant exclusive. It doesn't mean you have to be a vegetarian. You don't have to be vegan. There's actually a lot of brain health benefits to eating fish and seafood, and maybe eggs, and maybe good quality chicken and meat if that's part of your dietary pattern, if that's what you like to eat. But most of these brain healthy food groups are plant-based, okay? Now the first one.
For those of you who are new to my channel, I am predominantly plant-based, and I call it, I microdose my meats.
Yeah.
I microdose my meats.
You microdose, I love that.
You're doing it here. You microdose your meats. You're eating predominantly plant-based.
For example, if you'll notice the yellow square on top, that is meat, poultry, and eggs. Yeah. So this is more plant-based than the Mediterranean diet. It's more plant-based than the Mind diet. It leans more towards the green med diet, which is another study that just came out a few years ago that I really love. Speaking of green tea, it's a plant forward or a plant heavy Mediterranean diet. And this is where the scientific literature is going. That's why I wrote it this way. Now, how many servings of vegetables a day? The Mind diet says 1 serving a day. The Mediterranean diet says 1 serving a day. I honestly don't think that's enough. And that has to do with the amount of fiber we need to consume to keep our guts healthy, and also the amount of flavonoids, which are the plant nutrients that come from the pigments in these vegetables. So I say 3 servings of vegetables a day. And it's really is not as much as it sounds, because it's 3 cups raw or 1.5 cups cooked. That's not even that many vegetables.
That seems very low to me.
That's the minimum. That's the minimum to hit on a daily basis. And I recommend, like starting out the day like you do with a vegetable forward breakfast. So I may eat some scrambled eggs for breakfast, but I'm also going to throw in some arugula. I'm going to throw in some leftover cauliflower from the day before, some roasted red pepper, some eggplant. I'm going to make a veggie scramble.
So for those of you who have been following me for a while, you know that I also do predominantly plant-based, not predominantly, it's only plant-based, but I don't do it for breakfast. I break my fast around 12 or 1 with as many vegetables as I can possibly consume. And a lot of times I do that in stir fries where I've got like multiple vegetables all stir fried together, or I'll do it in like vegetable soups. But for me, I break my fast with the mushroom coffee, good for the brain. I put as many vegetables as I possibly can when I break my fast at lunch, because it sets myself up to where I don't have to be so strict about my dinner. I've gotten all of the good stuff in already.
It's a great way to eat. It's a great way to eat, and especially after working out when, you want that satiating protein. Now, the second one is leafy greens. One of the distinctions between the Mind diet and the Mediterranean diet is they took leafy greens out and made it its own food group, right?
Oh,
Because, leafy greens like arugula and kale and spinach, we consider those vegetables, right?
yeah.
But not in the brain health world. In the brain health world, they are their own unique food group because there's so much data just on this one food group to say that you should be getting a separate dose of this in addition to your vegetables.
I love that.
You're,
I
and
love
it
that.
sounds like you're already doing this. Now, the Mind
Are you
diet
kidding
says
me?
1 cup a day. The Mediterranean diet says about 1 cup a day. I upped it to 2 cups a day. Now, that's
Yeah,
2 cups raw or 1 cup cooked,
yeah.
which is
Yeah.
really not that many leafy greens.
I want to say I have at least that. I want to say I have at least that because when you are breaking your fast and you're only eating vegetables to break your fast, and then I'll add meats and different things, but I'm only eating plant-based to break my fast. The amount of vegetables that I have to get in because I'm hungry is like, that's a lot of vegetables.
Yeah.
So I'm at least getting that. Are there any particular leafy greens that are more brain healthy than others?
Yes, absolutely. So I got a little crazy about food pyramids when I was writing this book because I was reading all the data on what are the most nutrient dense foods, right? And so I came up with a food pyramid and then I thought, well, I think leafy greens should have their own pyramid too,
Yes.
because some leafy greens are more nutrient dense than others. So
What
that's
page
what
are
I
you
did.
on? Because I want to,
Um,
I want to
I
get there.
am on, sorry, I'm looking for it. It's chapter 3, I think. Oh, here we go. So yes, leafy greens has its own food pyramid. And I did this to help everyone shop and plan their meals around the most nutrient dense foods. So you all probably know already that the darker the leafy green, the more nutrients it has, like vitamin K and a lot of the other flavonoids that we know are
Yeah.
important for brain health. But what exactly are those? And that's exactly what I wrote here. So the dark and leafy ones are collard, dandelion greens, kale, spinach, Swiss chard, mustard greens, and watercress. Okay. And then next you have the lettuces, arugula, bib, butter, endive, little gem, red leaf, romaine, mesclun, mizuna. And a big takeaway here is to eat a large variety of these different types of greens. Don't
Yeah,
just get stuck on spinach or kale because you like it so much.
I know. And you know what? I tend to, I want to say, I mean, even when I do beets, I'll put these greens in
Yeah.
soup. You know,
Yeah,
those
those
are
are amazing.
greens. I love that. I love kale. I like to do like lettuce wraps a lot, but I want to, what page were you on for that? Because this is a really good. When
This
I
is
look
page
at my
83.
leafy greens, I'm like, I think I need more of the other ones. I mean, I always have kale in the house. I just don't have it in the house right now.
So it's on page 83.
Okay.
And then this third rung up here, these are herbs. I want people to consider herbs as leafy greens. They're actually some of the most nutrient dense leafy greens that we have, perfect, because the stems as well, the leaves provide these nutrients for us.
Yeah.
So things like cilantro, you can totally consume the stem. Parsley, sometimes basil, like the tender stems of herbs are really important. So that's where your pestos come in.
Yeah.
That's where, like last night, I made a cilantro chutney with cashews and like a serrano chili and some turmeric. And we had it with our stir fry. And I basically took 2 bundles of cilantro to make this chutney.
I love
And my husband and I
that.
basically ate like, all of the cilantro as part of our meal, which makes it delicious, of course, but also, so nutrient dense when it comes to leafy greens. That was in lieu of a salad with our meal.
Yeah. But also when you're using the full plant, this is, I think it's celery. Yeah, this is celery leaf. Sorry.
I
But when you're
love celery
using the
leaves.
whole plant, the structure, the fiber is not in meat. And for those of you who have, you're not somebody that follows me, you know that I'm always like a fiber first, fiber first. If we stopped worrying about how much protein we were getting and we were just like, how much fiber can I get through real food? Fiber comes through plants. And so it gives us this structural support. So if you're using something like cilantro and you're using not just the little pretty leaf that they would use in a restaurant, but you're sticking
The
that whole sucker in
whole
there,
plant.
using all of this, you're getting so much more fiber. And anything that you guys eat after that, when you have started with fiber first, sorry, I'm just going to go on a little tangent here, Annie. But when you start with fiber first, what it does is it creates that mesh in the small intestines. And that's how sugar gets pulled into your bloodstream. It gets digested, it gets to the small intestines when you start with fiber first, which comes from plants, or you can even do a fiber supplement. But what comes from plants, it creates a mesh in that small intestines, and it slows down the way that that glucose or fructose gets pulled through the bloodstream. And the slower we can slow that down through fiber, our friend, the less likely it's going to be stored as fat, right? And the more metabolic health that we have, and that equals longevity.
Oh my gosh, I'm so right there with you. You know, fiber is one of my 4 F's of brain healthy food. Fiber does lots of things for your brain indirectly. Okay, it's not a direct phenomenon like flavonoids that go right to your brain and block oxidative stress. What fiber does for you is it helps you keep at a healthy weight. Number one, it lowers your blood cholesterol. We know that the higher your LDL cholesterol, that's what most people consider the harmful cholesterol. The higher your LDL, the greater your risk of Alzheimer's later in life.
You guys, this is a good way to remember this. LDL. You want the L to be low.
You want the L to be low.
HDL,
Yeah.
right? That's the good cholesterol. That's the stuff that really, the HDL, you want that to be high. So HDL, aim for high. LDL, that's the bad cholesterol coming from animal products, low.
Yes. So fiber lowers your cholesterol in a good way. It stabilizes your blood sugar to maintain a healthy weight. And very, very crucially, it provides prebiotic fiber and animal fiber, plant fiber for your gut microbiota. And those are the trillions of microbiota that live in your gut, and they feast on fiber. You can't have a healthy gut without having a plant-based diet and a lot of fiber. And what those gut microbes do for your brain, you cannot have a healthy gut microbiome without having a plant-based diet. But what does this do for your brain? We all know there's a gut-brain connection, right? But what's the connection? These gut microbiota, in turn, when they are well fed, they create beneficial substances for the brain, like anti-inflammatory short-chain fatty acids. These are anti-inflammatory substances that are created in your gut that travel to your brain and block oxidative stress. They have certain functions in slowing down the aging of the brain. They might help, reduce whatever inflammatory particles you have come hitting your brain from the food you eat, or pollution, or pesticides, or stress, or lack of sleep, all of these things.
Senescent cells, damaged proteins that are in your brain, right?
This is part of our protection. This is how the body protects the brain from aging, especially accelerated aging. So yeah, fiber is one of my 4 F's of brain healthy food. It's a crucial component. And that's why I went more plant-based with these dietary patterns based on the Medi, the Mind, the Green Med diet. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, that is, if you just follow the science, and I'm going to try to say this in the most politically correct way that I can without cutting anybody else down, which sometimes is a little bit hard as a health coach when you see other health coaches. I think health coaches need to continue to be educated. Just even this study about alcohol caused you to change what was in your book. Mm-hmm. If you were not on top of the science stuff, you would have put out something that still said that alcohol was okay for the brain. So follow the science, you guys. And when you're
everything I say in my book, I've got scientific references. So anyone who wants to, debate it, I'm happy to debate anything, but it's all based on scientific literature. And I change my mind all the time, but honestly, this stuff is really not that controversial. Yeah. The science of how to eat for your brain has been evolving for decades. All of the good studies are saying pretty much the same thing. There's not a huge amount of controversy except in like the little minutia, like how much seafood should you have? Or should you eat meat at all? It's like splitting hairs at some point, but it's very solid in terms of what the scientific community agrees on, in terms of what a person should consume for a healthy brain.
Well, here's the thing too, though. It is controversial on social media.
Yeah.
When you have health coaches and workout people that are focusing on like this, get this steak in and eat this bacon and the keto diet and all of this stuff, because they're perpetuating something that is a fad, that is a big manufacturer is making some money at, right? I always tell
Hmm.
people, you don't have to buy a keto bar or keto coffee to have your body in a state of ketosis. It's in times of deprivation that you burn fat.
Hmm.
That's the science behind it, right? But then the marketers get in there, the marketing companies get in there and completely cloud
Yeah,
what.
it's really confusing for people. And, that's why going back to the science really simplifies things, honestly. This is not complicated whatsoever. And it's based on decades and decades of studies. They're all saying the same thing. But like if someone's always trying to sell you a product based on what their nutrition religion is, then that should definitely be a red flag. Like I'm trying to like get people to eat more fruits and vegetables,
Yeah, but
There's no
you never
products involved.
you never see an advertisement for broccoli. You don't
No,
see people trying to push collard greens. You know what I
no.
mean?
So
People are making that.
I'll go through the rest of the pyramid, just trying so everyone knows what the
Let's
gist
do
of it
it.
is. So vegetables here, I call out cruciferous vegetables. I call mushrooms honorary vegetables. We all know they're fungi, and I call out
Cruciferous.
colorful vegetables. Those are the three types that I want you to be able to get into your diet on at least a weekly basis. Leafy greens, I call out the dark leafy ones like we talked about. Micros are also on my leafy green pyramid because micros are super nutrient dense.
Give us
Whole grains.
an example of micros. I don't mean to interrupt, but give
Oh
us an
no,
example of
a
micros.
microgreen it's a tiny plant. It's an immature version of a plant.
Yeah.
And sometimes you buy them at nice grocery stores, but I just grow them on my counter from a kit. And I cut them off as they're mature. And I put them on my avocado toast or my smoothies or whatever. Microgreens are about 40 times more nutrient dense than the plant that they represent. Like a kale microgreen has 40 times more flavonoids than an actual piece of kale. So they're
I
incredibly
love
nutrient dense.
that.
And you see them at the grocery store, and they might be kind of expensive. Buy them at farmers markets are going to be a lot less. But just grow your own. You can buy a kit for like 20 bucks and you can have like an unlimited
Okay,
supply of microgreens.
that is so on my to-do list. I need a microgreen growing kit.
I'll, I'll send you a link to the one that I like to use.
I would
Okay,
love that.
this is whole grains. Okay, whole grains, some people might think they're controversial. They are not. There's so much data to say that whole grains are anti-inflammatory for your overall health, and they are crucial for your brain health. The recommended dose is 3 servings a day. Now, the serving size is quite small. It's a half a cup of cooked grains. So that could be like a half a cup of quinoa that you put in your salad. It could be half a cup of brown rice or black rice. Nice, like that. It could be one really nice piece of whole grain toast. You make avocado toast or something in the morning. So 3 servings of whole grains a day. It could be your oats or whatever kind of porridge you like to have. It could be the granola that you make at home or a nice product that you buy. Okay, the
I do
next one.
want to say this real quick. A whole grain, you guys, does not necessarily, when you see whole grains slapped on the side of Cheerios cereal, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a grain, I'm just using sunflower seeds right now, but you're talking about a grain that you can actually see, right? That's a nut, but you know what I mean. It's a grain that you can actually see. It's not pulverized and made into anything else. You can do a whole grain bread, but I always like to look for the visible seeds and nuts and things in the bread, right? The actual whole grain. Whole grain, I'm sorry, but Lucky Charms cereal is not whole grains,
Now,
okay?
and here's a trick when you're looking at bread at the grocery store. The number one ingredient should be whole wheat, okay? If it's truly a whole grain bread, but also the amount of fiber should be greater than the amount of carbohydrates in grams. So that's just a
That's
really
key.
easy trick to look at.
The amount of fiber in grams should be more than the number of carbohydrates in grams.
Yeah,
That's
because
a good rule of
sometimes
thumb.
we buy store-bought bread. I mean, I love baking bread, but I don't always have time. I'm sure a lot of your audience, people are just busy, and so we want to have like conveniently healthy foods we can buy at the grocery store. And we want to have tricks based on science to know that these are good for you and going to fit into our brain health
I want to
pyramid.
just I know we're going to get through this, but somebody just asked, are oats bad?
No, oats are not bad at all. Oats are actually extremely nutrient dense. They're budget friendly. I don't know hardly anyone who is sensitive or allergic to oats. Um, I recommend whole oats, like in their whole form, as opposed to the ones that come in like instant oatmeal.
I was going to say there's oats and then there's
Yeah,
oats, right?
yeah,
You really
yeah.
need
So
to
get
get it.
high quality oats. It's one product I always get organic.
Yeah.
Um,
I get all my products organic just because I mean, I grew up on a farm. The amount of pesticides and herbicides I think that were sprayed over me in crop
mhm.
dusting as a kid, I am making up for it now because
Oh yeah, that's
every,
right. You're from Central California, right?
yeah,
So the thing
everything's
with oats too, though, like, but not everything that has oat on the label is good. Like oat milk, for example. Like, how many oats do you actually think is in a cup of oat milk? I mean, some oat milks are probably fine. You have to read the label, make sure there's not added sugar, added binders. But do they count as a serving of whole grains? Probably not.
no, because
Probably not. Yeah.
I make my own almond milk and cashew milk and all of that. I have a machine that I do it at home. You'd be shocked at how few, like you can make an entire thing of almond milk, I want to say about this big, out of this many almonds.
Hmm.
It's very, very few. So
Well, yeah, the
I would
stuff that you
not
buy for
count them.
sure. I make my own almond milk and cashew milk as well. And I make mine really creamy because I like to use it for lattes and putting on oats and things like that. So I
Yeah.
use about a cup and a half of nuts per 4 cups of water.
Oh, that's so
Um, so
yours
that
is thick.
that gives you a pretty thick nut
Yeah.
milk, but it's different than what you buy at the
Yeah.
store. Okay,
Yeah.
so our
Yeah. Yeah.
next one is berries. Everyone knows that berries are good for your brain. The Mind Diet says 2 servings a week. A serving is 1/2 cup, but I upped it to 1 serving a day. And the reason
Okay.
why is we know that the minimum of 2 servings a week reduces your risk of Alzheimer's later. That's been studied. We know that 2 servings of berries a week reduces your risk of Alzheimer's. That's great, right?
Yeah.
But there's also been studies, especially this one cohort was women over the age of 60. And these women, when they consumed 1/2 cup every day, they performed better on cognitive tests as they got older. So I think there's some cognitive health benefits outside of not getting Alzheimer's to
It's
eat
also
berries every day.
it's also a very, very powerful antioxidant.
It's
So
good for other things as well.
anti-cancer, great for your brain. But berries, for those of you guys who are frozen berries as good as fresh, sometimes I think frozen berries are even better. And the reason is because they're flash frozen at their peak, but also you can get organic berries more affordable if they're frozen.
Hmm.
And berries are one of those. They're on the environmental working group's dirty dozen. If you cannot find berries that are organically grown, either they have that USDA symbol of being organic, or they're
Ooh,
from farmers market
that's
and
my
they don't
favorite
farm.
tea. That's my favorite tea that comes in a bag.
This is I love this tea. This is
I
by
love that
far
tea
my
from
favorite
Rishi.
tea. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
no,
what
it,
this is
it is
what goes into my
important. It is important to get berries organic. Just think of it as like berries are very porous. It's a things like leafy greens and tomatoes and other types of vegetables. But berries are very porous, and so it's very hard to get the pesticides off of them.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
a lot
and
of
yes, you can
times
buy frozen much more
much
affordable.
more affordable frozen. And a lot of times too, it's not about what you can wash off because certain plants, the pesticides and herbicides are only sprayed on it. Certain plants, it's taken up through their root system and it's in the flesh of the plant itself. So I urge you guys, if you guys are interested in what do you need to buy organic and what can you buy commercially farmed, go to ewg.org and get their list of their dirty dozen, those 12 fruits and vegetables that you should really aim to only buying organically sourced, and as well as the clean 15, those fruits and vegetables that it's not taken up through their root system, the herbicides and pesticides, and they're safe to buy commercially farmed, like avocados. Avocados you can
Hmm.
buy commercially farmed and it's not in the flesh. Okay,
I,
let's
ha-
see what you're
I
showing.
have a berries pyramid too.
I
But
love
basically,
that.
all you need to really remember is that the flavonoid pigment that is really important in berries. Why berries is special outside of all their fruits. It provides anthocyanins. It's a particularly potent brain health nutrient. Okay, and you find these in the red, purple, black, and dark blueberries. Now, here's the supermarket tip. If you're buying frozen blueberries, look for the wild blueberries in the freezer section. It just has to say wild on the package. It doesn't have to be a fancy brand at all. If it says wild, they all come from the exact same place. They're all grown in Nova Scotia or Maine. But wild blueberries have about 33% more of these anthocyanins because the anthocyanins reside in the skin of the berry. So if you have a big blueberry, like the ones we get from like different hemispheres when they're out of season, they're big and they don't taste very good. They're not as nutrient dense. It's the tiny tart berries
Yeah.
that have more anthocyanins because of the skin to flesh ratio.
Because of the skin to flesh ratio, but I'd also like to add because there's a little bit more hardship when they grow, right? They've got to survive the pests. They've got to survive the insects. They have to survive that. And in doing that, the conditions in which they're grown sometimes makes them a little bit stronger. So they're smaller.
Yeah, wild foods in general. Yeah, wild berries, wild mushrooms, wild plants.
Yeah.
Ramps. Like I'm a big forager, so it's always interesting to learn that there is science behind eating wild foods.
Yes,
Livy.
for sure. Okay, let's keep going down the. I'm gonna scroll for questions, and you keep going down the food pyramid.
Okay, so we've got berries, which I recommend daily. And then this next one is nuts. Now, nuts is a brain health food group in the Mind Diet study. I added seeds as an honorary food group because a lot of people are allergic to nuts, and you can get these same brain health benefits from seeds. Seeds are incredibly nutrient dense. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
This is always on my countertop because I'm predominantly plant-based. I do have a lot of seeds and nuts. So I always have sunflower seeds, pistachios, walnuts, which are great for your brain health, cashews. This is always on my kitchen counter. And then over by my TV where I snack at night, I have raw almonds and I've got a mix of my own kind of trail mix, but it's really it's raw almonds. It's these dark chocolate cacao. It's some goji berries, it's sunflower seeds, and and some almonds in there as well, and pistachios. So nuts are a big
nuts are fantastic. They're a no-brainer. It's been shown that if you eat 4 handfuls of nuts a week, it reduces your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. That's why it's included as part of the brain healthy diet. What's good for the heart is good for the brain. I also have a nut and seed pyramid, right? So nuts are more nutrient dense than others, but in general, you want to reach for a wide variety of nuts, just like you do in your home. I like cashews because I use them as a cheese substitute. Like I make a lot of nut-based cheeses using cashews that are absolutely delicious. And I use it as a cream substitute. I use cashew cream in my kitchen routinely. I almost never use heavy cream or milk anymore. So that's why I favor cashews, but almonds are high in protein. Pistachios have a lot of flavonoids. They all have these, different perks.
Yeah.
So if you're eating a wide variety of the nuts that you like, then you're hitting them. And if you also include seeds, it boosts the protein content of your meals as well. Yeah. And seeds are just really fun to eat and cook with. And then right here, so we're finally getting up.
You can do like flax seeds and chia seeds. You can sprinkle those on just about anything because there's not a lot of flavor in them. I oftentimes will sprinkle chia seeds or flax seeds in salads. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, very high in protein. So now we're finally getting up to an animal product. Up until now, we've been talking about all the different plant foods. And this blue line, that's fish and seafood. Now, fish and seafood is a really important brain health food group. We know that people that eat fish and seafood tend to get less Alzheimer's later in life. Okay, we know that. Which is not to say that if you're a vegetarian, that your Alzheimer's risk is increased, but it does seem to be protective, especially cold water fish that contain a lot of DHA and EPA, which are the omega-3 fatty acids. That is the fish and seafood pyramid. So this pyramid was created from the point of view of which is the fish and seafood that has the most omega-3 fatty acids, which are amazingly important for your brain, which ones are lowest in environmental toxins, such as mercury, and which fish and seafood are most planet friendly. All of those things went into developing this pyramid. And when you take all of those things into consideration, it's small fish like anchovies and mackerel and herring and sardines that are filling the bottom of that pyramid. And then after that is cold water fish like wild caught salmon, Icelandic cod. And at the top of the seafood pyramid are the things that we shouldn't be eating as frequently. And that would be, like large fish, like sea bass, like tilapia, like swordfish.
And the reason is because, the mercury, which is not great for your brain, the little fish, there's less of the mercury in it, but when a little fish gets eaten by another fish, gets eaten by another fish, all of that's cumulative. The
Yeah,
mercury's cumulative in that bigger fish.
exactly. It's called bioaccumulation. The bigger fish have more of it. And mercury, to be honest, mercury is more important to your brain health when you are younger, when you're a baby, a toddler, or a pregnant woman. There've been studies on people, older adults, let's say over the age of 60, who consume seafood. And people that consume more seafood have less Alzheimer's, even though they ended up having more mercury in their brains after they passed. They looked at autopsies of their brains. They found that the mercury content of the brain was not determinant of whether or not they got Alzheimer's. It's the number of fish servings they had in a week. So I think we should be concerned about this. Like if you're someone who eats a lot of sushi, like if you live someplace where you're eating like a ton of tuna, like maybe several times a week, you could be getting too much mercury. Or young adults who are consuming tons of sushi or other types of like swordfish and big fish, they could bioaccumulate. But for older adults, it's more important to eat fish and seafood and maybe not worry so much about the toxin aspect.
Somebody just said, please clarify cashews. I wasn't sure what that was about.
Cashews are a type of nut. I like them because they blend into a creamy, like I make all sorts of sauces and I make nut-based cheeses out of them. They are one of my favorite brain health nuts, but they're not as high in protein as some others, like almonds. And they don't have as many flavonoids as others.
You have in here using the cashews?
I do. I have for like lemony cashew ricotta, which I love. I use it for everything. It's like my stand-in for traditional mayonnaise.
Somebody just asked, should they be tested for mercury?
No, not necessary.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. Unless you're
not unless you think that you've been exposed to too much and you could have toxic levels, of course. But
and then another question: what if you use fish oil if you don't like to eat fish? Does it have the same brain health protection?
Well, this is a really important point, and I'm really glad that you brought that up because you don't have to eat fish and seafood to be brain healthy. Okay, you can be vegetarian, you can be vegan, you can be very strategic about your diet and get all the nutrients in, but DHA and EPA we only get from fish and seafood. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, you don't get that. There is a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid, but it's not the same. ALA is not the same. So there is a compelling argument for taking it as a supplement. And if you don't eat any fish or seafood at all, I would want you to weigh the pros and cons of whether or not you should take DHA and EPA as a supplement. And I'm in favor of fish oil based supplements because that's what the data shows that they get into the brain. There are also algae based supplements a lot of vegetarians and vegans take. Probably fine. That's where the fish get their DHA. But we don't have studies to actually prove that. So it's so important that I would go with fish oil if you're not ethically opposed to it.
Yeah, and for those of you who may or may not know this, I do have a supplement line. I do have a Cardio Max, which is a really high grade fish oil. But I wanted to ask you too, what is your take on magnesium?
Oh, magnesium is a really important brain health nutrient, especially for women. And what we're finding, the latest studies show us that a lot of people are actually deficient in magnesium, and that it may be up to 50% of adults. And I think it's probably to do with not eating a whole food diet. Like if you're eating like you are showing us you're eating, Darnell, I'd be hard pressed to think that you would be magnesium deficient, but it can certainly happen if you're exercising a lot, if you're under a lot of stress, if you're not getting enough sleep, or just getting older, makes it hard for us to accumulate magnesium. So that's one nutrient that I always supplement too. It's really important for brain health.
Here's my thing. I eat all the good stuff. But then I also supplement, because I've got my own supplement line, I also supplement with a fish oil, and I supplement with my product Neuromax, which is a magnesium. Because like you said, a lot of people are deficient in magnesium. And so I figured, why not just add that?
Well, this is how I think about it. This is what science says is the best way to eat for your brain. Even I am not eating 100% brain healthy perfect all the time.
Right.
Okay. I travel a ton. I'm always on the road to give retreats or speaking engagements or do cooking classes. I'm always going home to, take care of my mom who has Alzheimer's. I am not always able to eat as perfectly as I want to. So I feel like taking supplements, at least for me personally, just covers my
Yeah.
bases. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying as hard as I can. And when I'm home in my own kitchen, I'm doing really well. I'm covering all my bases.
Yeah.
But real life isn't always like that. So I take a fish oil supplement. I take another brain health nutrient supplement. I take magnesium. I take creatine. I mean, there's a few things that I take, occasionally a protein powder, just to cover my
I'm
bases. Yeah,
I'm gonna
we're
go
not
grab what I
superhuman eaters. We're not like, we can't be expected to be perfect eaters.
yeah.
And if you're embarking on like eating for your brain for the first time, this is the first time you're hearing this information, I don't want you to get discouraged. Like, this is going to be so hard. How am I going to eat all those foods? What you do is you start with the foods that you already really like. Like we already said that mushrooms are great. People that eat mushrooms twice a week, they tend to age with healthier brains. They tend to have less dementia. So, if you like mushrooms, that's fantastic. Everyone likes berries. Most people like vegetables. There's things on this pyramid that you can certainly embrace and just make
Right.
sure you're getting the right dose in the course of the week.
Right. Exactly. Okay, I have one more question. What are your 4 F's? I'm gonna go grab my supplements. What are your 4 F's of brain healthy food?
Okay, so the four F's of brain healthy food. This is something I came up with when my book was pretty much going to print. I was like, there's a lot of science in here, but what if someone walks into an elevator and they say, "Hey, Annie, what is a brain healthy food? What does that even mean?" I wanted to have something that was easy to remember for people that they could take with them to the grocery store, or when you're looking at a restaurant menu, you could be like, "Oh, let's think of the 4 F's. We'll see if this fits criteria." So the 4 F's has to do with fats, specifically brain-friendly fats. That's the DHA and EPA we're talking about from fish, but also you get brain-friendly fats from nuts and seeds and extra virgin olive oil and avocados and flax seeds and things like that. Okay, so brain-friendly fats is number one. Fiber is number two, and I think we've covered fiber.
Yeah.
Fiber is extremely important. We're totally on the same page when it
Fiber
comes to
is our
fiber,
friend,
Darnell.
people. Fiber first. Fiber is your friend.
Fiber is the main reason why you see, I have a plant-forward
Yeah.
Mediterranean diet that I'm recommending to people. The third one is flavonoids. We've touched on flavonoids. These are not really nutrients. They haven't been classified as nutrients. They are bioactive substances that come from plant foods, okay? Mostly colorful plant foods like vegetables and leafy greens and berries, but also beans. Beans and legumes is another food group we haven't gotten to, but like colorful beans have flavonoids. These are substances that block oxidative stress in the brain.
So like
And there's been
kidney
data,
beans, like
yeah,
kidney beans.
yeah. There's been data to show that if you eat, let's say you don't want to think about the brain healthy food groups, it's like way too complicated. You don't do food groups, you don't do like dietary plans, you don't do any of that. There's data to show that if you eat a flavonoid rich diet, like lots of colorful foods, your
Yeah.
Alzheimer's risk is reduced by 50%. They did the exact same study as the Mind Diet and the same cohort of people looking at flavonoid rich foods instead of like food groups and everything.
Yeah.
And the ones that reached for more flavonoid rich foods, they had half the risk of Alzheimer's. That's why flavonoids made it into my 4F's.
I love it. It's okay.
That's my dog,
It's
Olive Oil.
Somebody
Nitty.
just asked how much magnesium per day, and I want to just tell you guys real quick, because I eat my diet is pretty much spot on until I get to dinner, and then I give myself a break for dinner, because if I go out to dinner, if I'm with a friend or whatever, I'll usually do like a side salad first. I get the leafy greens in first to get that fiber, or I'll take a fiber supplement. But this is what I use for magnesium. And we had a question of how much magnesium.
I'm going to put my dog out and I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead. So you guys, just as a side note, this is my fish oil. This is Cardio Max. So I do, even though I eat all of this good stuff, I still take a pure omega-3. So you can just DM me the word supplements and I'll give you the link to my supplements. This is my Neuromax. This is what I take right before bed. This is magnesium threonate, which actually crosses through the blood-brain barrier, right? And calms you down, helps you sleep, but really, really great for brain health. I do break my fast every day with a mushroom coffee, and then occasionally I'll add in like an organic turkey tail supplement or something like that for brain health, because Alzheimer's and dementia does run in my family as well. My mother is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I had an uncle on my father's side who passed away from Alzheimer's. So I have been, concerned with my brain since, I want to say, for a while now. So I make sure that I'm getting all of those supplements. And sometimes, even though I can get them through food, I want to make doubly sure. So for those of you who've never been exposed to my supplement line, you can just DM me the word supplements or comment supplements below, and that'll give you that, it'll send you to that supplement line. Okay, so what were the other F's? We had
So we have
fiber, we had
brain-friendly fats, fiber,
fats.
flavonoids, and the last F is fit. And this just speaks to, if you're going to eat a certain way, this is not a diet that you go on in January and you go off in February. This is not Whole30, okay? This is eating for your brain for the rest of your life. So this is about you figuring out how are you going to get in all these brain health nutrients and all this fiber and all these fats in a way that makes it easy and it fits your budget, it fits your life. Some people don't like to cook. Some people don't have time to cook. I totally get that. So maybe you're not like a big cook, but maybe you become a strategic shopper and you know how to assemble really beautiful dishes. Like the cover recipe is basically an assembly job. It's a salmon salad with a really easy dressing, and you cut up an avocado and slice some berries. And I mean, this is not something that requires a lot of cooking. I realize a lot of people don't have time to cook. Cooking all their meals from scratch is maybe a deterrent to brain healthy eating for some people. So fit means just really thinking about, how do I personally access this? And also we've been talking a lot about the Mediterranean diet, and it is the most studied dietary pattern, but you don't have to eat like a Mediterranean person to access health. Mm-hmm. There are traditional heritage diets that come from African American communities, Latin American communities, Asian American communities. If you look at these heritage diets from other cultures, they look exactly like the Mediterranean dietary pyramid. Yeah. It's just different foods.
Just different.
And so like if you grew up, say, in an Asian American household, I'm not saying that you should start to eat like someone who lives in Greece or Italy.
Right. Right.
But to take the messages home, and we do have, it's a very well studied pattern, to just take these messages home and internalize it. That's why my pyramid is not Mediterranean. It's for everybody. It's for vegans. It's for vegetarians. It's for people that are pescatarians. It's people that like to eat meat sometimes. It's for people that might come from different cultural or ethnic backgrounds. It's for everybody to access brain health. That's what fit means.
I love it. Well, Dr. Annie Fenn, this has been so enlightening. You guys, I'm going to be here again tomorrow at 12 on Instagram Live. I'm going to be cooking or assembling some of the recipes in here. So join me tomorrow at noon on Instagram Live. I'll be right back here, and I'm going to be diving into this pretty amazing cookbook.
I can't wait to see what you're going to be making.
I don't know yet. What I think I'm going to do is, after this, I'll make a story and I'll give people some options on what they want to see me cook tomorrow. But I will be using recipes from your book. Annie, tell our viewers how they can find you.
The best way to find me, well, I'm on Instagram, of course, at Brain Health Kitchen. I do a lot of education over here, and I love my community here, so please come join. I also have a newsletter on Substack. The address for that is brainhealthkitchen.substack.com. And I write to my audience twice a week. And I started the Substack when my book came out because, you remember like the whole issue about the alcohol data? When new studies come up, I want people to know about them because we're constantly building on what we know. So what you'll find on my Substack are personal essays written from me about lots of topics, new recipes, because I'm always coming up with new recipes, but also, what's happening in the world of brain health that you need to know. Mostly, what are the practical things you need to know? Like we're doing a 4-part series on tea, where we did a deep dive into all of the different types of tea, real tea, which is like black and green tea. I just did a deep dive into matcha. We're going to be covering herbal tea. And then all the studies showing, does tea actually reduce your risk of dementia? Like, is tea, a brain healthy thing to do? Just actually examining it, not just going by hearsay or what we think is good for us. We did a 4-part series on protein. We've done lots of deep dives into supplements, omega-3 fatty acids. And so it's a great community. I would love to have everyone join over there as well.
I'd love to send you some supplements for you to try. Maybe I'll send you my Cardio Max, and I'll send you my Neuromax, my magnesium. Okay, this has been so great. It's so great to have you on here. We've learned so much, And so, everybody, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Saturday. I'm going to post this to my main feed, and I'm going to add you as a collaborator, so it'll be on both of our sites.
Oh, thanks.
And
This
then,
has been so much fun. I love being in your kitchen. I love seeing all your food. I love learning about your daily habits. You have so much to offer. Really,
oh,
really a pleasure.
so much. Well, pop in tomorrow at noon. I'm going to be cooking something up out of your book.
I will pop in and say hello. I'm going to be cooking as well, so I'll pop in and see
Okay.
what you're
Bye,
doing.
everybody.
Bye,
Have a
everyone.
great rest of your Saturday. All
Thanks
right.
for
Share
joining.
with your friends once we post this. Have a good day, everybody.